So hello everyone. Thanks again for tuning in. Um, yeah, so like I had a really interesting time like the last 10 days. Well, I've been to Lisbon and I just came to Lagos and like I spent so much time in parks. Like I never did that in Berlin, but like in Lisbon they have so beautiful parks. Just I was just lying there reading a book and just really doing nothing and just watching the sky, and I like haven't done that in a while. Because I was always like running shit, going somewhere, and like that felt so good just to do that. And I need more of that in my life, but I know if I'm going back to like Berlin and stuff, and I'm working and studying, then it probably will be the hustle again. But I don't know. Did you ever experience that you was just like sitting there and like looking somewhere and just doing nothing, and like so much thoughts came into my head, like it
Yeah,
was
for sure.
crazy. Like I cannot describe, like if you work so much and if you do so much, like your brain, I don't know, gets kind of in like a mode or something, and you're no longer able to think, I think, or you're just like a robot or something that is not able to think about stuff. Because I have the feeling that like I don't know, like you lose so much if you devote life to so much time. But just our system is built that you have to work that much in order to obtain a living. And yeah, but then there's the other argument. Imagine if everyone would have so much free time, like what would happen to them? They would probably riot. They would do crazy things. But still, I think like it's so difficult for me just like to get this time, and like even if you at home, then you have your phone and you have everything, and like you're under constant pressure in every situation. Or how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes back to the thing that I said last time about attention, that when you're constantly working, you pay a lot of attention to the work that you're doing and not paying attention to, for example, I don't know what kind of thoughts came into your head or something like that, right? But you're not paying attention to yourself, right?
Yeah.
So that's sort of what meditation is all about, where it's like you take a part of your day, a certain amount of minutes in your day, so and
Mhm.
you set that aside so that you can focus your attention on what you're perceiving in the current moment and not just running around doing whatever and being influenced by all these outside stimuli constantly.
Mhm. Yeah, but like it just like taking that time that you just talked about is so difficult, especially for me. Like I just see it, like my body was craving it, but like I just couldn't. Like I could, but like you always have the choice, but I just have to reduce everything, and like just like I think a big part would be just to have like a flippin' a phone that is not able to access the internet and not able to, like a Nokia or something, like an old one.
Yeah.
Like that would be a huge part. Like just imagine like you lay down in bed and then I don't know, like I'm not thinking while I'm like looking somewhere. I'm getting stimulus from YouTube, from I don't know, news that I'm reading, text messages that I'm getting, and like that's taking away so much thought and so much self-reflection time, and just that is so important. And I was just amazed because I always was like, yeah, what, doing nothing, like I have to be productive, I have to do something, I have to like educate myself. And like the last 10 days they showed me like you don't have to, like there's so much going on in your head if you just lay down and you just chill out. Like the guy I'm traveling with, like he's so good in like resting and like taking his mind off things. Like I can learn a lot from him because I'm not good at that. Like I'm always like want to get some information. Like I'm really curious about life. Like I talk to a lot of people. I Everything is kind of interest for me. But like just having reflection time like is amazing, and just having like yeah, like I don't know, Portugal has a lot of beautiful parks, like especially Lisbon. Like we've been to parks, they were like so beautiful. Um, and yeah, it's crazy what you then think about. Like you,
Well, I think
like
it's also because you're in a different place, right? So your brain automatically switches from one mode into another, right? From a hustle work within a familiar environment to a
yeah,
new environment and where you can gain new perspectives and new insights, you know?
definitely, definitely. But still, it was also when I was home because I was then like walking through the forest or something, like or the
Okay.
place we always went swimming, and there already it started. I was like, okay, shit. Um, I need that time because I left my phone at home and I was just walking and I was just, looking and not rushing me and yeah, like if you're like under constant pressure, then that's just not happening. And yeah, I just don't want to live my life like that anymore, Like,
Yeah.
but still, you have to some kind of extent,
Yeah, that
because
you have to find a balance, right?
yeah, be back with balance
I think I
again.
mean there's these stories about these tech gurus that just work really hard for long periods of time and then they go somewhere on a retreat where they don't have a phone, they don't have any books, they have nothing. They're just sort of like meditating 24 hours a day
Yeah,
whenever they're not sleeping basically.
uh,
Um, and they have like they try to minimize distractions and that kind of stuff. So
mm. But
even yeah.
no, you go ahead.
Even they are trying to find a balance between it because I think they realize that, just working all the time or just relaxing all the time, that doesn't work.
But I don't think that's balance though, what they do. It's just like people trying to get away from their hustle life. Like balance is if you can put everything into your day, and feel good, feel in balance the whole year. Because like I would say then they 6 months maybe totally out of the balance,
Yeah.
and then they try to like maybe it's balanced in some kind of way, but I don't think that's a balance.
Well, it's just really difficult to attain that balance on a day to day basis, I think, right? Because there's just days where you're going to be working more, and then there's other days where you're going to have more reflective time.
Yeah. But what would happen to a society like that wouldn't work so much? Like there's often the argument people are just like it's not impossible. Like that can't work. We need
Yeah.
to but
I mean,
but
some
then
societies are going that way, right? I think, what was it, Finland or Sweden or something like that, just accepted like a 4-day work week.
yeah, they did.
So some societies are going in that direction, and there is some indication that that kind of um, social restructuring also actually causes more productivity because the days that you are at work, then you actually work harder than if you stay an extra day.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure, but that's kind of like the argument of my father again, because he's always like, yeah, the state wants you to work in order. And he's always saying that to me, that like people would get crazy, or like it's they would just do stupid things if they wouldn't work, and the state wants you to work as much as you can just to get you busy. It's also like kind of like, yeah, capitalism is also a mechanism to keep human being busy, and like we totally lost the idea of, okay, what could what could be different, now they start with a 4 days
Yeah.
week, but
Well, I don't know
yeah.
if it's necessarily to just keep you busy. I think it's even more than just keep you busy. I think it's to keep you productive, to keep you doing something that will continue to benefit society, right?
Mhm.
That you're like repaying, in a sense, your debt to society by working.
Yeah, so you also have purpose, kind of, because if I'm saying like, just imagine they wouldn't work. So what do humans then do? Like, or like if we just imagine, like it's they we need some kind of purpose. That's 100% sure, right? If you just do nothing, but maybe you find purpose, I don't know, in loving your wife and loving your friends, and that's the purpose. But then there's like the argument, okay, where comes the food from when no one is producing any? But maybe we're
Right,
producing
right.
food ourselves, you know. Like that's just part of your day. You have your farm.
Yeah,
Everyone
it
is
just
living.
takes a lot of time. I mean, if you know, like being a farmer is a full time job in a sense, right? So what you do is you outsource that work to somebody else and then you pay them by giving them something else in return that is beneficial to them, and that way you can both get something that's of benefit.
Yeah, that's the argument of trade, basically, that if someone specializes, then it gets better. But yeah, just for the purpose of the mind or for the purpose of life, maybe I don't know, for us as a human being, it would be better if we like would live in communities and like and do that with our day and not like I don't know, chase that new trouser or chase that new car. You know, just I just want to focus my thoughts on thinking about how you could restructure human society, and I think that's like super difficult for me because or like for all of us because we basically have that idea. Okay, we learned that trade is beneficial for everyone, and like we basically grew up with the thoughts. I had another really interesting uh, re-encountering. I was in a exhibition in Vienna, and it was slightly touched about Marxism. Basically, there was a there was a video that like caught my eye. It was like a more like a movie. It was like an hour, and it was about the opening up of the border. Like Germany was separated, and then the border fell, and they had three different characters in that movie that described their perception. So they lived in the DDR, and then they had to like switch to living in the BRD. And there was one person, and like what she said, I found particularly interesting. She said that from that day on, she had to live in a society where she had to fuck up other people, basically. She didn't say it that way, but she, like that's what she described. Because basically, like even like communism is not the best thing. Maybe the way Marx imagined this is it good, but they didn't do it perfectly in the DDR either. But what they told people community, and they told people yeah to live together and kind of have a completely different way of thinking. And I was like, okay, you see, they have been brought up like that, and so they have that kind of thinking, and we have been brought up like this and we have that kind of thinking. So there is definitely the possibility to create something, I don't know, a system that is more humanized, or it's more based on the human needs that we really have. Because we had the talk also about happiness. Like at the end, money will not make us happy. The thing that is making us happy is community, and is having like a good talk, is having good friends. Like I think we're clear on that. Of course, up to an extent, you need money in our society, but
Yeah.
you can get so much joy just I don't know. Also yesterday I met so many people, I had so many talks. I went home and I was just smiling. Like I will never get that feeling. Um yeah, like if I'm working all day and like chasing something, or just the time that we had in Spain, like I really enjoyed the time with you again, like with everyone, because yeah, it's just
Yeah, it was awesome. I mean, it's what we actually care about, what we experience there, you know.
yeah, and like that's something I don't know, but our system isn't like 100% built on that. Like
No,
you could
no, it's yeah. I mean, it is very flawed in that sense, and I think most people don't realize what they should be paying attention to. You know, what they should be valuing, what they should be. Because I mean, relationships in that sense, right? The things that we think are important, they also take care, and a lot of people don't even take care of their relationships, and
yes,
so they don't work out for that reason because they don't actually realize that there's a lot of value to be found there if they exercise effort in that area, right?
yeah,
So
But
they think that they just pay attention to money, so they neglect all their friends and their family and their
Mhm.
kids or whatever. Um, I don't think it's impossible to do both, like to do both. To be successful and to pay attention to your family and kids, but it is very difficult. I mean, and most people have no idea how to do it. Um,
it is like 100% agree. It's so difficult to do that. But in our society, like if we just think about, okay, we create something completely new, that then like the values that we are striving for could change, and like it
yeah,
is possible because you see that in that video. I saw that person that was completely confused, and she said like, what the hell is going on? Like, it's nothing about community. It's nothing about, okay, everyone needs to be like, we
yeah,
need to do that together. And like, if you raise children like that, you can tell. My dad used to tell me water is flowing upwards, and I believed until I realized it's not that. It's not true. But you can tell children anything. Like, just
yeah.
some super minds have to think about a system that is like better, and like yeah. And
Yeah, I
also
mean,
like
I think there are a lot of people thinking about different types of systems that could be implemented. I mean, one argument that I think actually has a lot of weight is that we go from more globalized and large scale systems to smaller local systems so that we stop sending food halfway across the world. We stop having, or we stop giving so much power to authorities that have a large influence on people, and we give more power to like local, like localized areas, like, for example, that instead of having a lot of power in like the Bundesrat or Bundestag, like in Germany, you give
mm,
more of that power to the presidents of the cities or the Bürgermeister of each
so
city.
more federal system, so more federal system. That
No,
like
less
there's
federal.
less federal, so there's
Yes.
more authority in
More authority at a localized level.
okay.
At a local level, so that you give the more power to the communities rather than the.
But that's föderaler Bundesstaat. I'm pretty sure like federal means that
But
like the
federal is the whole thing.
yeah, but like federal is a different meaning in English than föderaler, I think.
Ah, okay. Well,
I have to
federal, I
look.
don't know if it's federal then.
But there always was the argument that like decision like with the grades, that the German system is fucked up in a sense. Because like the Abitur and like is way more difficult in Bayern and then Baden-Württemberg. That's because it's a federal system, because basically all the states have their own decision on how to educate, and that's basically what federal means. But let's get back to that point. I really found that interesting. So you see a trend where we go back to
I don't see a trend. The trend is going in the opposite direction, right? The trend is tending more towards globalism, like
yes.
globalized systems, globalized governments, or at least.
There's also like a backtrack now on that. Like a lot of things that happened, like with Brexit and stuff like that,
Yes, true,
is
true,
a
yeah.
step back to like a lot of people also say that. I read an article about that like globalization is coming to an end, but still like also then there's the argument like we need global thinking as well. Like, or do you think like there's benefits to that globalization, and
Absolutely, yeah,
there's
yeah.
drawbacks as well, but maybe go more in detail on that trend, or like that idea you just you were describing. So you see that there is a trend that there's
Well,
more.
I think it just comes down to the thing. It's like if you have uh let's say a president. Let's take Germany as example, right? You have
Mhm.
a system that oversees all of the Bundesländer, right?
Yeah.
Um, and if you give more power to the Bundesländer, then the Bundesländer can more accurately determine what the people in that Bundesland want rather than the people at the top deciding for everybody what they want. And if you went even a step further and gave all that power to the cities within that Bundesland, right, you would give more power to the people that actually govern the local area that they're in, right? Because it could be that you have people in one city that want something that's completely different from what people in another city wants, right? And their priorities are completely different, right? Like a large city like Berlin might want a new highway system or more expenditure on I don't know, renewing old areas or something like that. But a small town somewhere might have their priorities rather based on increasing spending on agriculture, increasing spending in localized businesses, that kind of stuff, right? So the priorities vary very extremely from city to city, from person to person even. So in my opinion, the best way to do it is just to give the most power at the smallest localized level. Obviously there's still a need for something like a national
Decision and rules.
governance, decision making, right? But I
Yeah.
think that those decisions then should be based on what those localized communities want at a different scale than it is now, right? Because they're doing a lot of micro decisions that local authorities could do, but they're being done by a national government.
So you kind of what you're describing is you now we have kind of more a top to bottom system
Yes,
that is like, and you want more, okay, we start at the bottom
right.
and then we kind of formulate the top decision based on
To
what.
me, it makes the most sense because it's like, where is the origin of our wants and needs, right? It's
Yes,
within
with the
every
people.
single one of us.
Yes.
And that's where I want to be as close to the source when making that decisions as possible, right? Because
Yeah.
the people that are, there's let's say there's like 1,000 people that are major decision makers in Germany. Those people have so much decision making power over other people. And I think a lot of the individual needs of people and communities is lost in translation there, you know?
Yeah.
So if you had more localized governments, then those local systems could meet their needs, and then when it requires a more national or international cooperation, then the national government can intervene and can plan and
I 100% agree with that. Like I love what you said, that basically there's a lot that is getting lost in translation, kind of, because then they like, okay, we need to do that, we need to do this. But they really didn't understand 100%, or how could they understand the needs? Like they
yeah,
just can't. Like
yeah.
it's impossible. But there is a really interesting system. Um, I maybe have to read back on that, and we have to talk about it in the next episode. But what I have in my head was that basically they invite people from the communities as representatives into decision making, and they have like an argument, just a normal political argument before they decide on something. So that's again back to another point we discussed, that we want
Yeah.
people to argue, we want people to discuss, because
Well,
I
that's
think.
something like Parliament or something like that in the
Yes,
UK, right?
but a parliament on a different level, not a parliament where like Schröder and I don't know, like Habeck speaks, like a parliament where the farmer from Altenburg, or the farmer from Schaffhausen, is basically saying, okay, yeah, that is my problem, and like there are the other people that listen to that, and they really talk to these people and they take them into account. Because often it's like, okay, yeah, we just need to listen to people. We need to argue. We need to understand, and then you can kind of understand the problem. And not only one person that is describing his perception, also another person that is maybe totally different, but has a totally different perspective to that opinion, or
Yeah.
to that problem, because that's so important. But
But that's
it's
what I'm saying. I feel people don't have a sense that their voices are heard, you know. They
Mhm.
they they they're too far removed from the decision making process that I mean, I think you can see it in a lot of countries, like in the US, for example, right? Barely anybody votes there. Like, I think it's like more than 50% of the population doesn't even vote at all, right?
Mhm.
So, and I
Mhm.
think that's a problem
And
with the
that's
fact that they
really bad.
feel like, right, but why did they not vote? I think they feel that their voices isn't heard. They feel like it doesn't matter if they vote because somebody else is going to make the decision for them, right? They're
100%.
not they don't feel like they're being heard, and I think the solution to that is a more localized system where you know if I also think this whole like moving into big cities together, I mean there's obviously also economic reasons for that, but
Yeah.
these systems of like mass like managing people on a larger level, it's just really difficult. You
Yeah.
know, in a small town, like if you know your neighbor is a farmer, right, and you sit with him once a week in a cafe and talk to him because he's your friend, you're gonna know that hey, when the next local election comes up, you know, I'm gonna vote for someone that represents farmers' interests if he's not doing
Yes.
well or something like that, right?
Yeah. And also we back to that kind of community that humans need. But
Right.
like, of course, that can also be done in the city. But in the city, you have also so much possibilities. And then what
Yeah.
kind of community is that? You know, like
And I
you
also
represent.
think the cities just breed psychopaths. Like, because you can just be a dickhead, you can be mean to someone, and you're not gonna see him again, right? You don't
Mhm.
care. Like, there's millions of people living in New York. If somebody's being an asshole to me, I'll just call him an asshole and say fuck you, right?
Yeah.
But if I do that in a town, you
Mhm.
know, I go into a bakery, I buy some bread, and I say fuck you to the baker, I have to
Mhm.
come back to that guy the next day to get bread, right? And
Mhm.
then he might not want to sell it to me, or he's gonna always give me a bad piece of bread or something like that. So I think you're removed from the right sort of this thing that you were saying about this woman earlier who was saying like that she was in a system where it was normal to like use people or fuck people over, right?
Yeah.
It's like
So she
that's
came into
what
the
you can
system.
do if you don't have to see people again. But if you have to see those people again, right? If it's a
Mhm.
process of like constantly working with them over and over, then you can't do that because then they won't work with you again, right?
Mhm.
They'll tell everybody in your town that you're a scammer, that you screwed them over.
Definitely. But what are we doing to like everyone is moving to big cities. That's the issue. Like
A
everyone
lot
is
of
like
people will. Yeah, there's been a
leaving.
reduction in it since COVID, but I think there's still that trend just because of
Yeah,
economics, just because of
possibilities,
capitalism.
economic possibilities. Like, and
Yeah,
it's the issue. Like we also had the talk that like you know your people in your community at home, and like these are the people that you know and that you should foster and that you should
yeah,
be there for and like
yeah,
take care of each other. And like everyone is like, yeah, personally, I'm the best example of that. Like going there, going here,
yeah,
being flipping everywhere. But am I really taking care of the community I was brought up in? I'm not. But
yeah, yeah,
normally that's so important because yeah, because we are community human
yeah,
beings.
yeah.
Like we need that. And
Yeah,
if
and
we
I
just
think I think you actually have a fair criticism of capitalism in that sense because I think it is mainly driven by um, this sort of, how do you say, what's the right term for this? The reason why companies want all of the people to move into a city together is because then they have the best selection of workers that they can choose from. They don't
Mm-hmm.
have to ship their products halfway around the world. They can just provide it at a local level, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
if you have a Walmart in a city somewhere, you can just make a huge Walmart, cram all your stuff in there, and you're constantly gonna have thousands of people coming in. But if you need
Yeah.
to have hundreds of thousands of locations around the country because the people are so spread out in their local communities, you know, maybe there are
Oh,
solutions to that, like in the sense that you make districts in cities, and some cities have tried to do that. Like New York, I think, has like districts, and then there's like district mayors. Like there's people that govern over certain districts within those
yes,
cities.
they have that in Berlin as well. Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't really know how. I don't really know the how that works or how or what effect that has, and that or if that even has any effect. I really don't know anything about that.
Yeah. Yeah. But still, like, how do we get people back to their communities? Like, how do we do that? Like, what will you change? Like, also, like, I had like I looked into was another museum, and they basically reconstructed a city in the back in the days. They had a
Mm-hmm.
bakery, they had
Mm-hmm.
one shop with like newspapers, and all this the cities were like, or not cities, the towns were kind of the same because they were sufficient on their
Mm-hmm.
own.
Mm-hmm.
like like you could live in that community, and you could be there, but now it's more, it's way bigger, and you have way more choices, and it's just not interesting to stay at home, because like you see that, or like to stay in a small community. But maybe we are craving that when we're getting older, and maybe it's just all right, but still you can see that, like, it's just a shame, because like even here in Portugal or in Italy, like just some towns, they are completely abandoned, and people go to like Milan in Italy,
Mm-hmm.
and they are like just, yeah, just gets lost and just stays there, and no one is living there. And you would have such a beautiful place where you could live, but people are just not doing it, because there are the huge incentives that come from the government, that come from big companies to just move into cities, like you said, with talent pool and everything. Like, of course, it makes sense for them, but we have to have some kind of rules in place to make communities attractive, and
Mm-hmm.
then also, like, really getting back to the point we discussed earlier, that these communities are then respected as well in the decision making, and they're not just, yeah, that's
Mm-hmm.
just a small city, I don't care about them,
Mm-hmm.
make them, yeah, make them important, and show them, okay, it's but like, we hear what you need, and we're there for you. And that
Mm-hmm.
maybe could work with a system like you described, that there's even more power to local governments. I see some problems in that, like with big decisions. Sometimes someone has to say something, and that just has to be done, because otherwise it takes ages. But like, in general, it makes 100% sense. But I'm still missing, like, ideas, like how to incentivize, because how do you incentivize, for example, Tesla to build they now build it, of course, in Berlin, in the
Mm-hmm.
capital of Germany, but how do you incentivize to build their their location in, I don't know where, yeah, in a small town? How do you do that? Because they look at everything, talent pool.
Well, I don't
Is
think
there
you
any,
can. I don't think you can incentivize that.
you could in another system. In our system, it's not possible. But basically, in Marxism, the state could just say, yeah, it goes there.
Yeah, well, the
But
problem with that is these government these companies, right? They rely on a free market in order to survive.
yes,
If they don't have the option to choose where they gonna go, they don't have the option to choose what people they're gonna hire. Um, you don't get what you want, which is the company to grow and to produce more of the product that people think is useful, right? You would
for sure.
produce
That's a yeah.
Yeah.
100%. That's
Now,
the
now,
system.
now, there's a fair criticism in there, I think, about the fact that there are these things that we think that we want, like a Tesla, and we'll do anything to get a Tesla, which includes not taking care of the things that will actually make us happy over the long run, which is intimate relationships with people. Um,
Mhm.
So, but I think that's just a criticism of the fact that we're paying attention to the wrong things, right? That we're not paying attention to this sort of the same thing we said last time, that we're not paying enough attention to the things that'll make us happy over the long term, but we're paying more attention to like what's next, what's better, what next product can I get, how is this product gonna improve, how am I gonna pay for that product,
Yeah.
um, you know.
Yeah, but that's so how would you do that? Like you would just educate people on that and still leave the system as it is and just tell them,
The thing is, I don't really know how you would change it. I mean, if you wanted to change it fast, it would have to be through revolution or something like that. But
yeah.
that always comes with the cost of like chaos, right? Like if you have a revolution somewhere, like it's just complete chaos. And then you might actually end up with a system that's worse after the revolution than it was
Mm.
before the revolution. So I think it's dangerous to walk that line, you know.
Yeah,
I don't
but
know.
basically what you sorry, you go ahead.
I think in a sense there's two ways to approach it. There's one way to say like, you know, I think I know what's right and I want to show people that what I think is right, in the sense that, you know, you want to help people live a better life.
Hmm.
And then the other perspective I have is just, if localized governments are actually better than nationalized governments, if people actually find more happiness in community and in connections with people in their local circle, it's just a matter of time till people will figure that out and levitate towards that behavior again, right? I mean, I think it's just a matter of time then, because the truth will always win in that way, right? Like what really makes
Yeah.
us happy will win in the end, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but it makes to some extent sense, but you have to have the environment for it, like you said. Like if you just we create the opposite environment, like we point people in directions that are not making them happy. And my only I
Well,
kind of like
I think it's a self-actualizing system. You know, if now everyone is always constantly on social media and all this kind of stuff, right? The
Mhm.
people, more and more and more people will realize like, hey, this is dangerous. This is making us unhappy. This is not good for our kids. This is not good for our connections. You know, and the more people sort of suffer as a consequence of that, being misled to pay attention to or value the wrong things,
Mhm.
um, more and more people are going to become aware of that,
Mhm.
and with time, we'll find ways of solving that problem.
Yeah, like that sounds nice, but I'm not 100% sure that that will happen that way, because you just see so many trends and just people being stuck on their phone and like I don't know. I hope that will happen and that we kind of will balance it out at the end of the day. I need that optimism, but
I'm not
sometimes I'm
sure
like,
if it will happen, you know. Like, I mean, it's just, it makes sense to me that that would be what would happen. But, you know, it's also possible that a lot of people are just happier being on their phones all the time. I mean, that is also possible.
because
Um,
it create, but what is that? Like it creates kind of the wrong happiness, you know? It gives you, of course, it gives you all that. happiness and like the hormones that you produce when you open your phone and it gives you dopamine and that kind of stuff. But is it real? But maybe you're right, and maybe people are really happier.
Well,
But
I don't
I
know. I think it's real in the same sense that uh, what you were saying earlier is real. That what happens when you form intimate connections with people or feel like your voice is being heard in your community. It's the same thing. It's just chemicals being released in your brain, like
yeah,
dopamine, serotonin, So
just
it's
like
the
big
same
circle.
it's the same sort of mechanism. It's just you're not using an external device or an external well, you are in a sense because you're externalizing your happiness on the people around you, right? In a real sense, the only way to be truly happy is sort of like the Buddhists say, is to be happy just not being influenced at all. Just sitting there, having your eyes closed and being with your own thoughts. If you can be happy then you can always be happy, right?
Mm. But that's something we're not fostering.
Yeah.
Like I I I had a really interesting thought when you were talking about basically we have to shift people into the right direction. Maybe we could leave the system like it is, but we can educate them on, okay, that's what you should value. That's what that is what important. That is what will make you happy, and maybe then the system will shift for itself. Because I think education is the answer, and I kind of have the idea. Okay, like you telling, or I don't know, you having in school like a Buddhism class, and just what you just said, you tell to people, and
Well, I
you let them.
mean, yeah. The problem is now, I guess what you're getting to, right, is the problem is that now all of education is focused heavily on training you to be in a
Productive.
capitalist system and to
Yes.
pay like to pay the most amount of attention to making money, being successful in a company, studying so that then
Yeah.
you can get a job somewhere and earn a good amount of money so that you can provide for your kids and buy new stuff and all that stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a shift is happening generally. Like there's a trend just happening, which is a consequence of the fact that we're coming to a point where we have everything that we need, right? Like we have the things we need, and all the things that are additional now are things that we want, right? Whereas our parents still grew up in times where there was, um, you know,
There was like a
a
need
lack
for,
of proper sanitation, a lack of proper nutrition. They
yeah.
couldn't just walk into a supermarket and get anything they want at a cheap price. They had to choose what was available and that kind of thing. So I think our generation is actually in a unique spot where we from birth basically grew up with all our needs being met. So
Mhm.
now we have a completely different focus on what we want to do with our lives, right? It's not just about educating yourself so that you can get a good job somewhere so that when you're older you can meet your needs, right? Our needs are already met. And now
Mhm.
since our needs are met, now we have to figure out what do we want?
Mhm.
Not just what do we need, but what do we want? And I think all of that falls into the same sort of category, right? It's like, what do we want? We want our. I mean, it is sort of still a survival question with some topics, right? Like, uh, we want sustainability so that we don't need to worry about, you know, die or the planet killing us off in the next 100 200 years or something like that, right?
Yeah.
But it's not the same sort of focus on like immediate, I need food, I need water, I need shelter, I need
Mhm.
um, protection, that kind of thing, right? I think it's
That is given.
shifting. Maybe the hierarchy of needs is, our attention on the hierarchy of needs is shifting more towards the things that are not essential,
Yeah.
because those are just baseline provided from us. I mean, they aren't, right? They actually rely on a global system of, you know, trading and communication and collaboration. Um,
So yeah, so basically, your argument is that the shift is going to happen it on its own,
I think
like
so. I think so. Yeah.
because humans now become aware of, okay, what do we really
Yeah.
want, and that's gonna happen.
I think so. I think it is going to be a consequence of that. I mean, I think maybe some of the things that we're already seeing with the ideas of like you know the social justice, you know, that it's like we want the African American community to um, be repaid for the fact that they were exploited, you know,
Yeah.
so this sort of like caring for one another is already a lot more present in our generation. Like, we don't want to use people, we don't want to harm people, we don't want to do bad to people, right? We don't want to
Hmm.
do that. Like, that's an active goal that our generation sort of sets out to achieve,
Hmm.
is to not offend anyone, not be mean to anyone, you know.
Hmm.
But there are
Hmm.
also dangers that come with that as well, you know.
Hmm. No, but I found that fascinating, like what you're saying, because I don't have that thinking that humans will be able to solve the problem. Like, of course, like you talking about that, like humans in general, the species will solve it, but I'm more like there has to be some kind of shift in education. Has to be rules and put in place. That's kind of my thinking. But
Yeah.
you kind of more thinking like, okay, it's going to happen naturally
Well,
because
I think we're in a way saying the same thing. I think that we both recognize that there needs to be a shift, in the sense that the only difference is that I'm saying you're saying there needs to be a shift, and I'm saying there is going to be a shift, right?
hmm. And you kind of more, again, more bottom up, and I'm more top down. Because I kind of have the
Yeah,
feeling
yeah.
if I walk around that like sometimes I lose trust in humans if I see something. I don't have. I know I shouldn't do that, but if I see, if I just listen to conversation, or if I just talk to people in my age, and sometimes like, what the hell, like like where that does that thinking come from? Like
Yeah.
that's totally wrong. That's harmful. That's fucking up other people. I'm not perfect either, but still, like some of the things that you hear, that it's just like, how can that from bottom happen? You know, there needs to be some kind of shift from top. But I
I
definitely
don't know. I
also.
think I don't really like that sort of authority, right? Like the sort of authoritarian system that is
Yes.
typical of like a communist sort of regime or something like that, because I just see the danger in one person thinking that they know what's right for other people, whereas other people might just have different priorities, right? Like we were saying earlier, or have different opinions, even, right? Like,
Mhm.
if you have a system, like, for example, abortion's a hot topic everywhere, right?
Yeah.
So if you have a top-down system, then you'll have a decision maker at the top who has an opinion about the topic, and he'll make widespread how would you say, decisions about whether or not you can have an abortion or not. And if
Hmm.
you localize that issue, then there would be a lot more people that would get what they want. You know, those communities in which the majority of people want abortions to be allowed, they can have abortions be legal. And then
Hmm.
the communities in which that's illegal, that they want it to be illegal, those communities can exist alongside with those other communities, and people will naturally tend towards the community that most accurately represents their beliefs, you know?
But
Um,
yeah. Um. hmm, I just had a thought. Like, I don't. I think it's problematic if you separate humans like you're describing, because like look at religion is causing a lot of wars and all just the topics that are causing wars. If like people, I think it needs to be like more harmonized. Definitely, people should be respected in their opinions, but if you form, then I don't know that country is that different to that one, and then it's always like, okay, we are different. We are a different nationality. I also had the argument sometime that, and I'm still of the opinion that nationalities are a huge issues, like because they don't see themselves as a human
yeah,
species. They see them as
I
Italians
agree
or
fully. Yeah,
Germans, and that is causing wars. Because, like, what am I different to
yeah,
a guy from Portugal or a guy from India? Like, I'm
yeah,
also
yeah.
just a human being that has been brought up with different thinking, and but I kind of want also more globalized thinking. I want people to learn in school. Okay, he's from India. That's a nice nationality, but he's basically just the same as you are as well. He has the same problems. He has the same thinkings. Maybe he has more problems. And when we talk about the hierarchy of needs again, because we have been brought up in a better system, but well, even if
Well,
it
I mean,
isn't a better system,
I think that people are different, right? Like if you grow up in a different culture, you grow up in a different country, that shapes you in a unique way compared to somebody who grows up somewhere else.
yeah,
So that leaves us with just intrinsic differences between people.
hmm but
And I think it's still a fair point to say that by separating those people, you sort of create these bubbles where they aren't experiencing other people's, you
hundred
know,
percent.
like personalities or traits or cultures.
Or they learn to
And
accept them, because then you're basically saying, okay, you just said what you were saying is then they go into, I don't know, the one who likes abortion lives in Jestetten, and the other one who doesn't like abortion goes to Altenburg, and then
right,
I always like, yeah, these are the guys that are
yeah, right. These are the
against
guys that like
abortion.
abortions. Let's
Yeah, fuck
right.
them.
Let's kill them because they
Yeah,
don't have the same views that we have, and we think that it's bad
yes,
what they think. Yeah,
and I.
I mean, I th- in that sense, just a general acceptance of other people, like just accepting that people are different and respecting the fact that they might have opinions that differ from you. And I think, I mean, I've been saying this for years now that I think that we should just abolish borders because not in the sense that there are no borders. I mean, that may be complicated with like economic systems and that kind of stuff. But even
Mhm.
then, I mean, I probably still think that borders are causing more harm than they do good. Um,
So
I
bored.
still still think there needs to be legislative borders in the
Mhm.
sense that I think that cities should still have borders, like people who genuinely live together, like close to one another, should
Yeah.
have their own borders, just like you have a border in the sense that you have your house, right?
Mhm.
In that sense, there should still be a border. I don't know, but then there's all these things about like national security and threats from like China, for example, now, right? Like
Mhm.
how that's a threat to our way of living.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't know. But it
Ca-
comes back down to it's like if those people just accepted and respected the way that we lived and didn't try to enforce their way of thinking or their legislative power over other people, rather
mhm.
they just stay within their, I think it's a problem of like wanting more power. There are people that just they want more power, they want more control,
Mhm.
because I think that they're convinced that they know what's right. They think like, yes, I know what's right, and everybody else is wrong. And that comes back down to the same point that I was making earlier. That it's like that's the danger, right? It's that somebody thinks like, oh, look at how well the Chinese Communist Party is doing, and I'm on the Chinese Communist Party, so I must know what's right because it's going so well. And those
Mm,
people in Taiwan or whatever, they don't have any clue what's going on and they don't even know how to live right. And so I'm gonna tell them how to live because I know
mm.
better what they need than they know themselves. And I think that that's a mistake.
Yeah, 100%. Um, so how do we get there? Like, we want people to accept each other and we want them to live in different kind of communities but still respect each other, and maybe like a thing like opening up borders or just abolishing them is also in a sense okay, everything is like interconnected because borders mean something for a human. Like this is now something you enter into
Mm-hmm.
another place, and maybe that also helps them like to create more togetherness and
Unity, collaboration, that kind of thing,
unity,
yeah.
collaboration. And I think there
Well,
has
I
to be like
also
some kind of
think. Sorry, go on.
sorry, you go ahead. Or can I wait? Let me quickly state that thought. I think there needs to be like a top layer of rules that are like human rules and like
Mm-hmm.
everyone can identify with it. I don't know, like the Bible, you shouldn't kill, and I
Mm-hmm.
don't like that kind of stuff. And then there's kind of the nationality that still should flourish, or like the
Yeah.
communities that still should flourish, but you should teach in all schools. That should be the top priority on all schools around the
Well,
world, the human.
you're making an argument for religion. I mean, religion is supposed to be that top-down guiding moral principle that even if you are the king of a country, you are still serving God, right? You're still working for somebody that's above you,
Mm-hmm,
right? So
mm-hmm.
you're making a religious argument. You know, religious people would
I'm
argue
not
that that's
making.
what.
Yeah, that like you can see it as a religion, but I wouldn't sell it as a religion. Like that, what was religion was earlier back in the days, but now religion is a difficult topic. Uh, and I I would more say it's you could use it as a religion, but there are also then different religions with different opinions and have a different way of thinking. But like I think it would be more like a treaty that all the countries sign and that they teach and that they like, yeah, like you are not any different
Yeah,
than
that's
another
the thing,
guy.
but that's I don't think there's a way to change it. I think if it does happen, it's gonna happen naturally. Like there, I don't think you can really do anything. Like I
But
think
if you teach, if
government,
you if you teach,
education, all of that stuff, it's less powerful than we believe. I think what mostly happens is that people just live their life and start believing things based on the way that they live their life, not
uh,
necessarily too much on what they were taught and all that kind of stuff. Like that obviously has an influence, right? But I don't think that that wins
that
at the
that's
end
the
of the
whole
day.
influence. I would say like you
No,
are
no.
the you. No, I would say you are the like you are the like you are the sum of your surroundings, and like I'm the
Yeah, yeah. But I'm
yeah,
also
and like
biological.
but like you are like that because like your parents have brought you up in that kind of sense, and like then okay, I met Marcus in seventh grade, and like
Yeah.
this also changed my
But that's too
perception.
complex that you can't have influence over that, right? Like
Of
we
course.
both went to school, right? To the same school at one point even, right? We both had a certain education, but now we both believe something else. That's because they can teach me something, but they can't prevent you from teaching me something else, right?
It shouldn't, yeah, but we also talked about the education shouldn't be about this is right or this is wrong. Like it's always about be curious and learn. Like that's an argument, but here's another argument to that topic, and people have different perception. But I don't know, I'm not, I'm just more thinking about that we have to teach how, like, yeah, that we are humans at the end of the day, because I don't see that in any educations, and always people have that kind of thought, okay, yeah, he's different, he's another person, I don't like him because of this and that. But yeah, like I would just think it's useful to tell people that, or just have institutions that foster like human collaboration in general. But but like, how are you saying that that is happening naturally? Like,
The human collaboration part of it?
yes, the
Well,
human
for
collaboration.
example, just one example, that's what I wanted to say earlier, was that I think that people now, or our generation now, is a lot more aware through the fact that we get like media, international media, and all that kind of stuff. So we grow up in a much more international context, right? We learn a lot more about different cultures at a very young age, right? Through these tools. So I think that, for example, a natural shift that's just going to happen that you'll see is that the world will just naturally become more accepting of people of different cultures, of different personalities and identities, because we just come in contact with those things at a much earlier age, right? It's normal to see people that are different from us, that have different beliefs from us online. Maybe
Mhm.
not the belief part, because that's sort of right. There's some debate about whether or not you actually get more diversity of beliefs online, or you get less because you're only interacting with people that share the same belief. But for sure, you're interacting with
More people and more things than
right,
earlier.
right,
That's
right. And I
100%.
think a natural consequence of that is going to be that we just realize that people are, or we just accept people more for who they are, you know,
Hmm.
as a
Yeah,
consequence of being exposed to them way earlier.
yeah. So like, kind of as a clothing thought, like, kind of from your side, y- you see that the trends that I'm kind of wanting to see already happening, and I thanks for saying that. Like, I see that now also more clearly that there is definitely a change happening. Um, but still, there needs to be, I think, the change is happening, but the change could be better founded or better fostered if there would be more clear rules and also like steps into that direction. But that's also coming. So maybe like everything that we worried about will be fine.
Yeah, and
Um,
there is a certain complacency in that, like me saying that. So I
mm,
think there still has to be, like, there's still a role for your concern, in that sense that it's like you could be the one to step up to change that, right? To guide people in the right direction, and to, because you're making an argument for the fact that there's like people unnecessarily suffering because they are paying attention to the wrong things, right?
yes.
So there still needs to be people who will guide people in the right direction, in that sense, right?
Mm,
And I
that's
think, but I think the way that you have to do that is by making a convincing argument and genuinely convincing the people that that is better, rather than just coming and saying like, you're not allowed to do this anymore, you're not allowed to do that anymore, by making new laws and that kind of stuff, and then not even explaining to the people like, what am I actually doing, what
mm,
why should you actually do this.
mm. Yeah, I like that, but still, I think that laws are a kind of importance because it kind of signalizes as well. Okay, that's the direction we are taking. But definitely, when a law is introduced or something and is introduced, like you have to be really transparent about it and just like you said, force to that and explain that. But I really liked what you were saying that you as a person have kind of the the urge, or you should feel the urge to help. And like, I don't know, it's just a great thing to talk to people, and maybe or you get enlightened sometimes by other people, and or you can help other people to see things in a different perspective.
Yeah.
And then we're back to communities, back to talking, back to the last episode where we talk about just we have to go out and have to collaborate again, and like to be together. Yeah, I think that sums it up pretty well, or do you have something to add?
Mm, I don't think so. I think we'll end it on that note. Thank you guys again for listening. If you liked this episode, please share it with your friends and family. See you next time.